So we'll be discussing test number one in this class. Test number one. Before starting this discussion, I will be explaining two basic things related to the test series and overall. Since this class is now being recorded after we know the marks of 2019, so with reference to that also plus discussion as well. Initially, I will be taking the section A discussion, and just after break section B as well, and model answer will also be uploaded. So related to any test, two basic things I will explain first. First is that usually students are concerned about whether they are able to complete the answer within 3 hours or not. I will suggest that in the initial few tests, you can say 5 6 rather. In the initial few tests, you should not be bothering about writing the test within time frame. The reason is that once you will write the correct content, whether it takes half an hour more or less, then you will be preserving that answer, and you will be referring to that answer, and you will be able to reproduce that answer in the final exam as well. So I will say don't bother much about completing the answer within time frame, rather focus on the content part, even if it takes a longer period. Even if you are writing one particular test in break, like for example you have written section A, just take a break and just then write paper 2, maybe second day as well. It's not necessary to write a complete test. You can have that practice in the last 5 comprehensive tests. Okay, वो last 5 comprehensive test में if you are writing within that time period, and in the last 2 tests, even if you are writing both tests on one day, that will be better. But in the initial test, just focus on completing the paper. Just complete. Don't leave it. कि एक question रह गया, 2 question रह गए. Just try to complete that paper. And as far as how much to write, those who are appearing first time particularly, in the compulsory section, it is 5 question in section A and 5 question in section B. So if you start with question number 1, it has 5 parts. So I will suggest at the maximum 1.5 side, one side complete and the second 2 side अगर होता है, अगर content required है तो, but otherwise 1.5 side. So 1.5 side into 5 question. So 7.5 sides basically you have written for section A compulsory. Then question number 5 in section B, A, B, C, D and E. Next 5 compulsory question again 1.5 into 5. So basically in the compulsory section, compulsory question, 15 pages, because the time constraint is there. So I have to explain that part also. Because finally जब आप start में मैं कह रहा हूँ कि अभी time constraint follow नहीं करना, but ultimately you have to face that constraint. So 1.5 will be ideal length, I said. One side if you are writing compact, it takes around 80 to 90 words roughly, and the next half, so it will be effectively 140 150 words complete हो जाएंगे 1.5 side, including that diagram. Don't draw very big diagram. Don't start your answer with a diagram. So I will be taking those things along with the discussion. Then apart from these 2 questions which are compulsory in section A and section B, you are choosing any 3 question. So any 3 question, obviously final exam micro and macro is usually in section A, international and growth and development is usually in section B, but interchange होते हैं. ठीक है, growth and development के question भी आपको section A के अंदर मिल सकते हैं. So in the remaining 3 question, each question will have usually 3 parts. ठीक है, A, B and C. Usually the first question is of 20 marks, then 15 and 15. वो भी इंटरचेंज कभी कभी रहता है, उस पर भी ध्यान रखना पेपर देते समय कि फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन ही 20 मार्क्स का है या नहीं. जो 20 मार्क्स के क्वेश्चन है और जो 15 मार्क्स के क्वेश्चन है, यूजुअली स्टूडेंट एक साइकोलॉजिकल बेंट हो जाता है कि ठीक है 20 मार्क्स का क्वेश्चन, यू आर एक्सपेक्टेड टू इलैबोरेट मोर. आई विल से डोंट डिफरेंशिएट मच बिटवीन 15 मार्क्स एंड 20 मार्क्स. Just write 2 side, at least 2 side. ठीक है, थर्ड साइड में जाता नो प्रॉब्लम, बट एटलीस्ट आई एम सेइंग 2 साइड. So 9 question you are writing here. So 9 into 2, that makes 18 sides and 15 sides here. So overall 33 to 34 side with a good speed. In 3 hour cannot write more than that. ठीक है, तो ये ओवरऑल कंस्ट्रेंट है. इफ यू हैव अ गुड स्पीड, इफ यू नो ऑल द फैक्ट, देन इट इज सेपरेट थिंग, बट एट लीस्ट 33 to 34 साइड्स आपके हो जाएंगे इफ यू आर राइटिंग कंपल्सरी क्वेश्चन इन 1.5 साइड एंड रिमेनिंग क्वेश्चंस इन बोथ साइड. ठीक है, सो 33 to 40 इन बिटवीन नॉर्मली स्टूडेंट्स का जो आंसर शीट होता है उसका आसपास होता है. सो दिस इज ऑल अबाउट द लेंथ एंड टाइम कंस्ट्रेंट. Exactly what you have to write and how you have to start your answer, I will be explaining that part. Now coming first to the marks of 2019. In 2019 as compared to 2018 and 17, I will say students have scored less, and it is across all optional, not only just with economics. So it is across all optional, and in 2019, ठीक है, जिन्होंने पेपर दे रखा they can relate well. जिन्होंने पेपर नहीं दे रखा उनको ज़्यादा सोचने की जरूरत नहीं है, जो फर्स्ट टाइम आंसर दे रहे हैं, because वो you can say that it will be a blessing in disguise for you. Like you don't have the past experience, so you are writing it afresh, so you are not thinking too much. But जिन्होंने आंसर दे रखा पहले इनिशियली 12, 17 और 18 में बेटर मार्क्स आए, 19 में कम हो गए, तो they will start always rethinking how to modify. ठीक है, वो कभी कभी आपके फेवर में वर्क करता है, कभी कभी और डिसएडवांटेजेस पोजीशन हो जाता है. डोंट थिंक टू मच इन दिस साइड, बट स्टिल इन 2019 यूजुअली इन पेपर 1 students have scored well as well. That means they have scored in the range of 165, 70 and just 70 also. So there is a greater variation. So in paper 1 you will find a greater variation. Now what should be the ideal score? Difficult to say, but I will say at least bare minimum, if you want to qualify and you want to have a good rank, then it should be at least 140. At least 140. If you score 160, it is good. So it should be aiming for 160, at least 160, 170. But even if a question is difficult, you should be ending up with 140. But currently जो 140 भी expect कर रहे थे, उनके स्कोर भी मेजोरिटी ऑफ स्टूडेंट्स के जो स्कोर है वो 120, 130, 110 भी है, बिलो 100 भी है. बट इवन बाय स्कोरिंग 238, I can recall 238 or 230 students are in the final list. ठीक है, recommended है मतलब वो, और वो भी वो लास्ट के रैंक नहीं है, टॉप 200 के अंदर ही है. उसका मतलब है अगर 250 भी हम बेयर मिनिमम स्कोर करते हैं, then you are not out of race. You are in, provided जनरल स्टडीज, एसे और इंटरव्यू आपको सपोर्ट कर रहा हूँ. और स्कोर ज़्यादा होने के बावजूद कभी कभी नहीं होता, लेटर से 285 का भी स्कोर है बट वो फाइनल लिस्ट में नहीं है, वो भी केस होते हैं. ठीक है, तो यू शुड बी एमिंग अराउंड 275 प्लस. 300 प्लस इज वेरी गुड, वो एम्बिशियस थोड़ा टारगेट हो जाएगा. आइडियली शुड बी एमिंग फॉर दैट, बट 275 इज आई थिंक रीजनेबल स्कोर, गुड इनफ टू गेट एनी रैंक. ठीक है, आप किसी भी स्टूडेंट से इस बार की जो रिजल्ट है उसके अकॉर्डिंगली देख सकते हैं. 275 प्लस इज वेरी गुड स्कोर. फॉर 275 प्लस पेपर 1 शुड बी एट लीस्ट 140 एंड पेपर 2 स्टेबल है 2019 के अंदर भी. 2019 में पेपर 1 में वेरिएशन आई सर, फ्यू स्टूडेंट्स हैव स्कोर्ड 160 प्लस एंड मोस्ट ऑफ देम 120, 130 एंड 130 के अंदर स्कोर है, तो वेरिएशन है वहां पे. बट इन पेपर्स 2 मोस्टली स्टूडेंट्स आर 130 प्लस माइनस, इफ आई से 7 to 8 मार्क्स, तो इसी रेंज में ऑलमोस्ट. So you can say to some extent greater stability of marks in paper 2 as compared to paper 1. But having said that, that means paper 1 involve greater risk. Greater the variation in marks, greater will be the risk associated. So you have to be more careful in paper 1. Given that the test series will have 8 tests for paper 1 and 4 tests for paper 2, because you require more practice in paper 1. Now since there is greater variation, so I will point out certain things, those who have scored more and those who are lacking. I think the scoring or marking will be basically based upon the technical aspect, like whether you are writing the correct keywords, correct sentences, and those correct sentences must be from directly from, let us say, core book. For example, suppose if you are explaining Bain's limit price. Now, if question is explain limit price or define limit price, then define limit price as it has been defined in the code service. That it is the highest price that established firm can charge without inducing any entry of new firm. Then explain the rationale behind it. If it is liquidity trap, just define that liquidity trap as it has been defined in, let us say, Dornbusch or Freud. If it is classical dichotomy or monetary neutrality, then explain as it is, as it has been explained in the Freud. The verbatim वो reproduce कर देना, but it is a very difficult to reproduce it unless you have not written it 2 or 3 times before. Usually students का concept होता है, they know the concept and they will be writing that in examination or in their own words, और वहीं पे problem. The moment you are using your own words, paper 1 is creating problem. So you have to write more, you can say, in the bookish language. Okay, but what you need है, we have to comply to that. UPSC is giving more marks to those students who are basically writing the answer in those words. ठीक है, वो की रेफरेंसेस जो इम्पोर्टेंट बुक्स और सोर्सेज है उसको रेफर करते हुए आपको बेसिकली आंसर लिखना है. So this was about current year pattern. Although it is very difficult to say what will be the marking scheme for 2020, but last 2-3 years से ये perception या 3-4 years से ये perception था कि जनरल स्टडीज में नंबर नहीं आते हैं, so students should be scoring more in the option. 300 plus अगर आएगा तभी सिलेक्शन होगा. I think वो ट्रेंड ब्रेक करने का एक डेलिबरेट अटेम्प्ट है 2019. ऑप्शनल के अंदर आपको स्कोर ज़्यादा नहीं दे रहे हैं, जनरल स्टडीज में स्कोर आ गया. ठीक है, लाइक जनरल स्टडीज 4 के अंदर 164 ऐसे भी नंबर है, काफ़ी हाई मार्क्स है. जनरल स्टडीज के अंदर स्कोर हो रहा है और ऑप्शनल के अंदर, बट ये ट्रेंड रहेगा या नहीं रहेगा वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू से. गिवन द कंस्ट्रेंट आई सेड एम फॉर 275 प्लस. फॉर दैट पर्पस योर पेपर 1 and paper 2 must be balanced. Paper 1 bare minimum, let us say 140, and paper 2 130 is good. But if you are writing the answer and if you have done enough practice, you can reach 160, 170, and that will push you beyond 300. Okay. So related to that, now we are discussing test number 1. Now you have just 2 months before May 2020. Today is 1st of November. So you have entire November month and December month for writing your or practicing all the paper 1 test as well as paper 2 test. Now since the duration between prelims and mains current year COVID की वजह से जो duration compact हो गया, reduce हो गया, constant, but it is constant for all students and for us also. So I will be starting with test number 1 discussion. And initially section A first. So test 1 section A. You have the question, I will be showing this question. First thing, test 1 syllabus was in micro, it was market structure, but market means not only product market, it was also market failure. So there are some questions from market failure also. And in macro, it was classical and Keynesian, that is ISLM model and the classical model, and a few topics of public finance. So mainly it is micro and macro. Now see the first question compulsory. I tried to include some new questions and expecting, like this balanced budget is not fiscal neutral. Liquidity trap is a frequently asked question. What is full employment budget surplus? Explain its policy significance. That is a new one. Define limit price. Explain Bain's argument related to limit price. Limit price was, I think, question in 2016. Then explain why a monopolist does not have a supply curve. Use diagram. So few questions from micro and few questions from macro. Clear? Completely सारे नए क्वेश्चन देने का भी sometimes when we set paper model आंसर मॉडल क्वेश्चन के फॉर्म में डिफिकल्टी है कि अगर हम completely सारे नए क्वेश्चन लेते हैं तो वो आपको लग सकता है कि ये जो पेपर में आता है उससे रिलेटेड नहीं होता है. तो जब आप प्रैक्टिस करें इट शुड बी वेरी क्लोज टू व्हाट हैज बीन आस्क्ड. जो पेपर में आता है वो क्वेश्चन से रिलेटेड होना चाहिए. ये नहीं कि कम्प्लीटली नए क्वेश्चन मैंने डिफिकल्टी शो करने के लिए सारे नए क्वेश्चन दे दिए, बट उससे वो राइट प्रैक्टिस आपका नहीं होगा, बिकॉज वो फिर रिक्वायर्ड नहीं होगा. आंसर लिखते समय आपकी जरूरत उसकी क्वेश्चन की बहुत कम पड़ेगी. Just don't focus completely on the new question. Incorporate, let us say 15-20% will be the new element. और जो नए क्वेश्चन है ऑफ ट्रैक क्वेश्चन है वो ग्रुप आई थिंक जो व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप फॉर्म्ड है फॉर मेंस 2020. ठीक है, उस ग्रुप में से कोई स्टूडेंट्स है जिन्हें मेंस लिखना है 2020 के लिए. उसमें मैं नए क्वेश्चन ओकेजनली पुट कर रहा हूँ सो दैट जस्ट अगर एक क्वेश्चन आपने आप इफ यू हैव गॉन थ्रू दैट क्वेश्चन so we'll have some idea. So if it comes, and I have practiced it in 2017, in 2018 as well as in 19, and I find that some question comes generally. Like Thursday of common came in the last year or last to last year. Then a gravity model update in 2017 I think. So कुछ क्वेश्चन जो कंपल्सरी में आ जाते हैं वैसे क्वेश्चन मिल सकते हैं वहाँ से. So I will be starting with section A first, and question number 1: balanced budget is not fiscal neutral. Now, if you write this first question, now one thing, how to start. So the question is very simple. Balanced budget is not fiscal neutral. Is not fiscal neutral. So you can simply start by saying, what do you mean by balanced budget? Balanced budget is when increase in government expenditure or rather change in government expenditure is equal to change in tax. So you can simply start with that. Balanced budget means that. Now if I say it is not fiscal neutral, it is not fiscal neutral means it will have an impact on economy. Neutral hota when it will have no impact on the economy. So why balanced budget is not fiscal neutral? Reason being, when government expenditure increases, it increases aggregate demand and thereby it increases income. And by how much it will increase income, that will determine by government expenditure multiplier. And the government expenditure multiplier is 1 upon 1 minus C. So you can say change in income due to change in government expenditure is this. Second, tax reduces aggregate demand because tax will first of all reduce disposable income and thereby it will reduce consumption spending. But if you impose tax of 100, disposable income will reduce by 100 but consumption will fall by less than 100, as the value of marginal propensity to consume is less than 1. That is, part of decline in disposable income will be absorbed by decline in saving also. So you have to explain that part. So when tax will be imposed, it will reduce this aggregate demand and thereby it will reduce income. But by how much income will get reduced, that will be determined by tax multiplier. And tax multiplier is minus C upon 1 minus C multiplied by change in tax, so that will determine the change in income. Since budget is balanced, so what will be the overall net change? That net change you can say delta G upon 1 minus C plus this value minus C upon 1 minus C. Since budget is balanced, so you can write here delta G also in place of that. So change in income is equal to, take that delta G common, so 1 minus C upon 1 minus C into delta G. Clear? So change in income is in fact equal to change in government expenditure. So delta Y upon delta G is equal to 1. ठीक है, बैलेंस बजट मल्टीप्लायर हो गया. बैलेंस बजट मल्टीप्लायर की वैल्यू होगी. So balance budget multiplier is 1. It is not 0. It is 1. It means change in income will be equal to the change in government expenditure, which is equal to the change in tax surplus. So if you have increase in income and if you change government expenditure by 100 and tax also by 100, then income will also increase by 100. That is balance budget theorem. ठीक है, ये 19 में क्वेश्चन आया हुआ था. बैलेंस बजट थ्योरम does not always hold. That means it is not always equal to 1. So that is a separate thing. It is not always equal to 1. That means आपको explain करना है when the value of balance budget multiplier will be different from 1. That means less than 1. So in that question you have to add that if there is a proportional income tax or import as a function of income, then the value of balance budget multiplier will get reduced. But here when the question was balance budget is not fiscal neutral. So explain this, but don't leave your answer in terms of equation. ठीक है, वो एग्जाम ने इकोनॉमिक्स के अंदर आपसे इकोनॉमिक लॉजिक रिक्वायर कर रहा है. ठीक है, सिर्फ मैथमेटिकल डेरिवेशन रिक्वायर नहीं कर रहा कि आपने बैलेंस बजट लिख दिया डेल्टा इक्वल टू डेल्टा टी और फिर ये इक्वेशन लिख दिया, सेकंड इक्वेशन लिख दिया, कंबाइन करके लिख दिया. ये मैथमेटिकल लुक नहीं आना. मतलब ये आप यूज करेंगे बट इट इज नॉट सब्स्टिट्यूट फॉर योर डिस्क्रिप्शन. So you have to describe it as well, and the description basically involve government expenditure change has a expansionary effect. You have to underline those keywords. It expands aggregate demand and therefore it has an expansionary effect, while tax has a contractionary effect on income because it contracts aggregate demand. But that expansionary effect and contractionary effect are not numerically equal. The expansionary effect of government expenditure is more as compared to the contractionary effect of tax, and therefore there is expansion of income, and in that sense balanced budget is not fiscal neutral. So you have to conclude by saying that. And why contractionary effect is less? Because when tax is imposed it reduces disposable income. When disposable income get reduced, part of that decline in disposable income is absorbed by decline in consumption and part is being absorbed by decline in saving as the value of MPC is less than 1. So you have to specify that. ठीक है, वो लॉजिक आपके शॉर्ट पैराग्राफ में अलग अलग आना चाहिए. लाइक व्हेन यू राइट आंसर, ठीक है, वो डायरेक्टली इक्वेशन के फॉर्म में नहीं लिखना है. प्रेफरेबली, ठीक है, ये मॉडल आंसर आपको मिल जाएगा, पोर्टल पे अपलोड हो जाएगा. ठीक है, लाइक जस्ट फॉर एग्जांपल बिकॉज दिस फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन आई विल शो इट. Balanced budget means change in government expenditure and change in tax are equal. Symbolically one लिख दिया होगा. Government budget directly affects the level of equilibrium level of income in two separate ways. First, government expenditure are a component of AD. Second, taxes affect the relation between output and income and disposable income available to the consumption. ठीक है. Then explain however the expansionary effect of government expenditure on income is greater than contractionary effect of tax on income. So underline that. ठीक है, जहाँ जहाँ मैं अंडरलाइन कर रहा हूँ उसी फॉर्म में आपका प्रेजेंटेशन होना, मतलब आंसर वो आंसर शीट के अंदर वो कॉम्पैक्ट लिखना चाहिए आपका आंसर. एंड आफ्टर एक्सप्लेनिंग दैट कीवर्ड, नाउ एक्सप्लेन हाउ and why expansion effect is greater as compared to the contraction effect. So expansionary effect of government expenditure, this is because taxes affect disposable income by the size of tax, but decline in consumption is less than the decline in disposable income as some decline in income is absorbed by decline in savings. ठीक है, तो ये रिफ्लेक्ट होना चाहिए. और ये आफ्टर राइटिंग दिस यू कैन राइट इट इन टर्म्स ऑफ इक्वेशन also. Numerically, government expenditure multipliers greater than the tax multiplier. So overall increase in income due to balance budget will be this. ठीक है, बट ये जो मैंने लास्ट में लिख रखा है उसको आप अप फ्रंट मतलब स्टार्ट ना करें वहाँ से, because that gives a look that you are going to explain it mathematically. So you have to use the equation, but before that equation or behind that equation, what is the economic interpretation or logic, you have to explain that part. ठीक है, तो इफेक्टिवली तो फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन है उसका आंसर आपको इस फॉर्मेट में और इस फॉर्म में इफ यू आर एबल टू रिप्रोड्यूस इट वेरी गुड. ठीक है, नाउ मूव टू क्वेश्चन 1B. Second B is what is liquidity trap? Is monetary policy ineffective in this case? So what is liquidity trap and how? What is the policy implication? ये क्वेश्चन कई बार आ रखा है. ऐसे क्वेश्चन अगर मिल जाते हैं वहाँ पे तो इफेक्टिवली ऐसे क्वेश्चन में यू शुड बी आइडियली स्कोरिंग 7 और मोर देन 7. जो आंसर वेल प्रिपेयर्ड होना चाहिए क्वेश्चन का. So that requires exact definition of a liquidity trap first. So liquidity trap, you can say that it refers to that situation where people are willing to hold whatever amount of money is being supplied at a very critical low rate of interest. The key word is critical low rate of interest. It means it will arise at a very low rate of interest, and in that liquidity trap, people are willing to hold whatever amount of money is being supplied to them because bond is not providing any return and it is better to keep cash for speculative reasons. So explain that idea first. So that require a short paragraph for defining the term. So explain that term. The keyword is again, I repeat, it will always arise as the very low rate of interest, critically low rate of interest. And in this liquidity trap, people are keeping in their portfolio only cash and no bond. Then go on to explain why it arises. ठीक है, उसके बाद आपको एक्सप्लेन करना है कि ये अराइज क्यों हो रहा है. दैट मीन्स why it is better to keep cash rather than keeping bond, because cash gives you zero return. Nominal sense में उसका रिटर्न जीरो हो गया. बॉन्ड पे जो रिटर्न है वो रेट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट प्लस माइनस कैपिटल गेन और लॉस होता है. सो इफ द रेट ऑफ रिटर्न ऑन बॉन्ड is less than the rate of return on cash, then it is better to keep only cash. But when such situation will arise only when the expected capital loss on bond is going to be greater as compared to the rate of return that you are expecting on that bond. So in that condition, it is better to hold cash rather than keeping bond. So explain that part and then explain the policy implication. And you can also add there that in this liquidity trap, interest elasticity of money demand, जिसे technically H के symbol से डॉर्मश के बुक में explain किया गया होगा. You can relate that slope of LM is K by H. ठीक है, K और H मनी डिमांड के इक्वेशन है. KY minus HI equal to M upon P. ठीक है, this was a money market equilibrium condition where K and H represent. K is a income elasticity of money demand and H is interest elasticity of money demand, and slope of LM is K upon H. So when H is infinite, slope will be zero and line will be horizontal. So in the liquidity trap, LM curve is horizontal. So you can use those key words that in the liquidity trap, interest elasticity of money demand. Don't just write symbol H. Interest elasticity of money demand becomes infinite, and as a result, LM curve becomes horizontal, and it is horizontal at that critical rate of interest. ठीक है, ये जो रेट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट आप यहाँ मार्क करें वो क्रिटिकल है. That means interest rate cannot fall below that. So interest rate will not fall below that. So in those type of liquidity trap condition, monetary policy simply fails because transmission mechanism will break. And transmission mechanism means the mechanism by which money supply increase causes increase in income. So usually what happens that when money supply increases, people use that money in order to buy bond. As a result, value of bond increases and that will push rate of interest down. Reduction of rate of interest promote investment and therefore aggregate demand increases and therefore income increases. That is transmission mechanism. I think that question is also there. So I will explain that part also in detail. But once economy reaches the liquidity trap, then increase in money supply fails to induce anyone to use their cash to buy bond because rate of return on that bond is low and it is close to zero. So it could not induce anyone to buy bond. Therefore, they prefer to keep all money in the form of cash, and as a result, rate of interest is not declining, therefore investment is not increasing, and therefore government monetary policy is ineffective. So the way out from liquidity trap is not monetary. The way out is basically fiscal expansion. So I expected to explain that part. ठीक है, यहाँ भी आप एक्सप्लेन करते समय डायग्राम यू कैन यूज, ऑल्दो लिक्विडिटी ट्रैप का इफेक्टिवली कोई डायग्राम नहीं होगा, इन द सेंस देयर विल बी नो शिफ्ट हियर because it is already at a very low rate of interest. ठीक है, it is not that it will shift further downward, it is already at a very low rate of interest. यहाँ भी आंसर लिखते समय you have to write it exactly. First of all, first paragraph define the term. So definition must be exact. ठीक है, और उसमें जितने possible keywords हो सकते हैं वो उसके अंदर आ जाने चाहिए. Then explain that there is liquid trap at critical low rate of interest. This is because people would not want to hold any bond as money held has an advantage to be used in the transaction purpose. Then explain this, and then you can add on the policy implication part. The policy implication of liquid trap is that monetary policy is ineffective, but don't just leave there. That is ineffective. Explain why it is ineffective. If you have to give that, and then again you can use the graphical part and value of HL0. ठीक है, रिमेंबर ये सारे चीजें आपको वहाँ पे you have less than 10 minutes to write. ठीक है, तो इफेक्टिव तभी होगा जब आपने उसको एक बार लिख रखा और वो एग्जैक्टली लर्न है, then you can reproduce it. But it will come with practice, because some time will be taken by new question as well. You have to think, and if it is in the compulsory like this, what is full employment budget surplus? Explain its policy significance. What is full employment budget surplus? Explain its policy significance. So we have to explain the policy significance of full employment budget surplus. So first again define what is full employment budget surplus, meaning of it, and then the policy implication of that. Remember, full employment budget surplus is simply you can say it is budget surplus measured at full employment level of income or potential output. So it is a full employment budget surplus. Full employment budget surplus is simply budget surplus calculated at full employment. So for full employment, this star mark. So it is budget surplus, it means it is difference between tax and government expenditure. So you can say it is tax minus government expenditure. Transfers को भी आप minus कर सकते हैं, but that is also part of government expenditure. Tax is simply a proportion of income. Government expenditure and transfers are autonomous, and this is income at potential GDP. So this is full employment budget surplus, but it can be negative. Surplus does not mean that कि वो term हमेशा positive ही रहना है. ये term use किए जाते हैं. The same term is also known as cyclically adjusted deficit, CAD भी कहते हैं. ठीक है, तो ये full employment budget surplus, it can be zero, it can be positive, or it can be negative. ठीक है, तीनों कंडीशन पॉसिबल है. एक्चुअल में जब बजट सरप्लस कैलकुलेट करेंगे, देन इट इज कैलकुलेटेड एट एक्चुअल इनकम. सो इफ यू फाइंड डिफरेंस बिटवीन फुल एम्प्लॉयमेंट बजट सरप्लस एंड एक्चुअल बजट सरप्लस, then difference is not due to government expenditure and transfer, it is only because of difference in income tax collection. So it is small t y star minus y, difference is that. फर्स्ट पैराग्राफ में तो जस्ट आप एक्सप्लेन कर देंगे फुल एम्प्लॉयमेंट बजट सरप्लस होता क्या. सो इट इज बजट सरप्लस कैलकुलेटेड एट पोटेंशियल जीडीपी. दैट मींस व्हेन y is equal to yf or y star, you can say, then whatever be the position in budget, that will be referred as full employment budget surplus. Now explain the policy significance. Policy significance of CAD, that is cyclically adjusted deficit, is that it gives direction to fiscal policy, when to change policy and when not to change the policy. It is giving direction to fiscal policy, when to change fiscal policy and when not to change the fiscal policy. वो आप फर्स्ट पार्ट में मेंशन करेंगे, that the significance is that it is giving direction to the fiscal policy. Now elaborate that part. In what sense it is giving direction to the fiscal policy, when to change and when not to change. Just for example, make one condition: if full employment budget surplus is zero. I said it can be zero, it can be positive, it can be negative. So if full employment budget surplus is zero, then what is the meaning of it? If full employment budget surplus is zero, then it means that if y is equal to y star, then budget surplus will be zero. मतलब बजट बैलेंस होगा अगर y की वैल्यू y स्टार के बराबर होगी तो. Full employment budget surplus is budget surplus calculated at full employment. So if I say that full employment budget surplus is zero, it means if y is equal to y star, then budget surplus will be zero. Budget will be balanced. But if y is less than y star, तो अगर आउटपुट पोटेंशियल से कम, अगर आउटपुट पोटेंशियल के बराबर होता है तो बजट बैलेंस होगा. Since output is less, there will be less tax collection. Then there will be deficit in budget. Okay, so if y is less than y star, then we have a deficit. Now, but if we have a deficit, then question is it a regular problem, persistent problem, or is it just a short-term problem? Policymaker know that y will not remain less than y star forever, because over a period of time output will have a tendency to return back to the full employment level. So they know that in long run y will become equal to y star, but if y will become equal to y star, then budget surplus will become zero. That means this deficit is just a temporary problem. So if it is a temporary problem, then there is no need to change the tax system, tax laws, tax rate, because we are facing just a temporary problem in the budget. But this is one condition. Second is if full employment budget surplus is negative, इसका मतलब हो गया डेफिसिट है. Now full employment budget surplus negative means even if y is equal to y star, even if y is equal to y star, then also there will be deficit in budget. y अगर y star के बराबर है तो भी इकोनॉमी में, गवर्नमेंट के बजट में डेफिसिट होगा. Now in such case if y is less than y star, तो अगर y star के बराबर होता तो भी डेफिसिट होना था. तो अगर y की वैल्यू y star से कम है, then in fact not only that there will be a deficit, it will be higher. So if y is less than y star, then there is deficit and it will be higher. But question is this deficit a short-term problem? The answer is no. Because over a period of time, even if y will become equal to y star, the deficit will continue. So if deficit is going to continue in long run, then policymaker know that they require change in the policy. So only through change in the policy this problem can be corrected. So when to change the policy and when not to change the policy, we get to know by saying what is the situation in full employment budget surplus. So if it is zero, then no need to change the policy. If it is negative, then there is need to change the policy. So in that sense, it is giving direction to the fiscal policy. ठीक है, अब ये क्वेश्चन बहुत सारे स्टूडेंट जो अभी तक लिख रखा है उसमें रियली कुछ स्टूडेंट हैं जिनके वो सही है, बट इंटरप्रिटेशन की बात है यहाँ पे, हाउ यू आर रीडिंग इट. बाय मिस्टेक अगर आपने उसको लिख दिया कि ये सरप्लस है, दैट मीन्स बजट में हमेशा सरप्लस होगा, वो करेक्ट इंटरप्रिटेशन नहीं है. Full employment budget surplus can be zero, it can be negative, it can be positive also. So you have to interpret it. And to just remember, it is also referred as the cyclically adjusted deficit. Structural surplus भी कहते हैं इसे. So वो cyclical variation show करता है. CAD is basically showing the cyclical variation in budget. तो यहाँ पे अब exactness required है. ऐसे क्वेश्चन में नॉर्मली if you do not know और पहले अगर नहीं लिख रखा है या पता नहीं है और फाइनल पेपर में डायरेक्टली अगर लिखना होता है, ऐसे क्वेश्चन में एग्जैक्टनेस अगर नहीं होता है तो वहाँ मार्किंग बिल्कुल ही नहीं होगी. ठीक है, तो जब लेस स्कोर होते हैं तो वहाँ पे आपको आइडेंटिफाई करना है कि ये रीजन ये होता है. जो मार्किंग इज स्टिफ, मतलब आइडियली आंसर परफेक्ट अगर हम लिखते हैं तो भी यू कैन एक्सपेक्ट अराउंड 6 or 6.5, नॉट मोर देन दैट. इफ यू आर राइटिंग इट परफेक्ट आंसर 6 and 6.5. तो ऑब्वियसली इट इज नॉट परफेक्ट, इम्परफेक्ट आंसर लिख रहे हैं, देन इट इज 4, 4.5. ठीक है, तो मार्किंग अभी जो फर्स्ट टेस्ट के अंदर मैंने किया वो स्टिल आई थिंक जो भी इनको भी इवैल्यूएटेड आंसर शीट मिला हुआ है स्टिल वो लीनियंट है, यूपीएससी की मार्किंग उससे टफ होगी। ठीक है, मतलब 19 के कंटेक्स्ट में अब ये कह के, तो अब आई विल बी टेकिंग केयर ऑफ दैट फ्रॉम सब्सिक्वेंट टेस्ट एज वेल। ठीक है, तो इफ यू राइटिंग परफेक्ट आंसर देन यू आर होपिंग फॉर लेटर से 6, अदरवाइज 4, 4.5, और ऑफ ट्रैक अगर आंसर लिखा हुआ है तो वो ऑल टुगेदर 0 हो जाएगा। क्लियर? दिस वाज थर्ड। देन डी पार्ट, define limit price, explain Bain's argument related to the limit price. Now define limit price. So you have to start simply by exact definition of limit price, that and as defined by Bain. So Bain defined limit price as the highest price which established firm can charge without inducing entry of new firms in the market. So explain that part first. Then explain the significance. What was the logic provided by Bain? Bain basically talked about the potential entry. The traditional theories were more concerned about the actual entry. They were more concerned about the actual entry. Once new firm will enter, then existing firm will take precautionary decision. But Bain is basically talking about the potential entry. So in order to prevent the entry, in order to prevent those potential entry, the established firm in the market, the firms already established, incumbent, they charge a limit price, but that limit price is usually lower than the monopoly price and higher than the competitive price. That means they forego some of their monopoly profit. But why they forego some of their monopoly profit? Because they want to prevent the entry of new firms. So in the first paragraph you have defined limit price, in the second explain the logic behind it, from third you can explain that limit price theory, and assumption वगैरह required हो तो आप यूज कर सकते हैं, अदरवाइज ग्राफिकली इसको एक्सप्लेन कर सकते हो। दैट इफ market demand curve is known to the established firm, corresponding marginal revenue curve, established firm will calculate the limit price. If average cost is lower, for example, so if an average cost is constant, then marginal cost is equal to it. So here profit maximization quantity, and this will be the price. The question is whether the firm will charge this price or not. That all depends upon what is the limit price. If I say that limit price is above, what the definition of limit price is, what this is the highest price that they can charge without inducing any entry. So if they charge more than this, then they will be entry. At any price lower than that, there is no entry. So since price P1 is the profit maximizing price, so firms will continue to charge that profit maximizing price rather than the limit price. But if average cost is higher, for example, suppose average cost is here, let's say 2, MC equal to MR at this quantity, and when you determine this price is coming out to be higher than the limit price. So now the established firm has two options. One, charge a monopoly price which is P2, but if you charge any price above the limit price, you attract entry of new firms, and therefore your profit after entry becomes uncertain. So you have to discount that profit. The other option is don't charge this profit maximizing price, charge the limit price, and if you charge that limit price, then your profit is lower, but it is certain because it is preventing entry of new firms. So explain this graph briefly. ठीक है, वो briefly आपको ये graph explain करना है और limit price के अंदर explanation चाहिए। assumption वगैरह आप यूज कर सकते हो, बट आई थिंक कंपल्सरी क्वेश्चन में फिर ये एडिंग ऑल assumption ट्रेडिशनली अगर आंसर लिख रहे हैं, ट्रेडिशनल फॉर्म होता है कि ठीक है कोई मॉडल अगर पूछा गया वो सारे assumption आपने पहले वहाँ स्पेसिफाई कर दिए। rather than that I will say that अब जो मेन आइडिया मॉडल का वहाँ से आप बिगिन कीजिए, और assumption जहाँ required हो वहाँ पे यूज करना, ठीक है, unless question required कि आप assumption को explain करो डायरेक्ट, ठीक है. This was question in 16. तो 16 में जब ये क्वेश्चन आया था, दिस वाज अ न्यू क्वेश्चन. तो ओलिगोपोली के अंदर ये यूजुअली कवर नहीं होते थे, but since then you can say it is an important question now. The last question in section A, compulsive one. Explain why a monopoly does not have a supply curve. Use diagram. Why a monopoly does not have a supply curve. Now the keyword is here supply curve. So just start your answer by explaining supply curve. What the supply curve is supposed to explain? Supply curve is supposed to explain the relationship between price and quantity supply. Supply curve explain relationship between price and quantity supply. वो पहली लाइन हो जाएगी, and then you can say that unlike perfect competition, because monopolies does not have supply curve, it means perfect competition में तो supply curve होता है. So unlike perfect competition where marginal cost curve is supply curve, unlike perfect competition where marginal cost curve is supply curve, monopolies do not have a supply curve. So why monopolies do not have a supply curve, you have to explain that part. And it is mainly because in the market there is one seller but there are many buyers. Monopolies do not control the demand side. Monopolies cannot choose price and output both. It can choose output, then price will be determined by the buyer. That means at what price they will be ready to buy that quantity. Or monopolies can choose price, but in that case buyer will decide how much quantity they will buy at that price. And the second thing is that it is possible for a monopolist to sell two different quantity at same price, or sell same quantity at two different price. Remember, unless you do not have a unique relation between price and quantity, you cannot plot it. So there is no unique correspondence between price and quantity. So in that way we can say that demand supply curve is indeterminate. We do not have a unique supply curve. And then explain this condition graphically, because the question says use diagram, so to explain that part step पे ध्यान दे सकते हैं. And preferably you should be using scale, ठीक है. रामनेशन में तो यूज कीजिए, टेस्ट लिखते समय भी यूज कीजिए, तो वो बहुत डिफरेंट जो प्रेजेंटेशन होता है उसमें वो जो लोग होगा आपके आंसर शीट का वो बहुत डिफरेंट हो जाता है. जब आप डायग्राम वगैरह काफ़ी स्केची ड्रॉ करते हैं, आप बहुत शॉर्ट में ड्रॉ कर दिया, विजिबल नहीं है या क्लैरिटी नहीं है, तो जस्ट अवॉइड दोस. डिमांड कर्व एंड करस्पॉन्डिंग मार्जिनल रेवेन्यू कर्व, यहाँ पे कुछ बेसिक पॉइंट्स वगैरह ध्यान रखने हैं. लाइक डिमांड कर्व जब कभी हम ड्रॉ करते हैं, वट एवर बी द एंगल क्रिएटेड हियर, द करस्पॉन्डिंग एमआर विल सिंपली बाइसेक्ट इट, because the slope of MR is always twice of the slope of demand curve. Marginal cost line, first determine this quantity MC equal to MR, quantity Q1, price is determined from demand curve. We have to show same price and two different quantity. So there will be two different quantity only when MC and MR are intersecting at two different quantity. But you have to keep same price. So if you can remember this, I can pass MR from here and demand curve from here, so that when you draw demand curve here, D2, corresponding marginal revenue curve is passing from this point. So MR2 and MC intersect at this quantity. So quantity will be Q2, but price charge will be from demand curve. So price is same. So if demand curve is D1 or D2, accordingly there can be two different quantity, but those quantity are being sold at same price. One diagram we draw करते हैं, it is enough. But if you have time, use the second one also. MC equal to MR, this determines quantity and price. Now we have to say same quantity, so MC and MR must be intersecting at same quantity. Same quantity पे यहाँ से MR cross करना होगा. So now it is easy. First you can draw that MR line, and above it you can draw the demand line. So now price is P2. ठीक है, तो ये सिंगल डायग्राम से एक्सप्लेन कर सकते हो, वो डायग्राम से बता सकते हो. So in that way we can say that there is no unique correspondence between price and quantity, and as a real supply curve does not exist. But having said that, यूजुअली जब हम किसी और टॉपिक में ये यूज कर रहे होते हैं, कंपेयर करते हैं परफेक्ट कंपटीशन और मोनोपोली को, देन यूजुअली वी टेक मार्जिनल कॉस्ट एज द सप्लाई का. बट अगर क्वेश्चन कह रहा है कि क्या मोनोपोली का सप्लाई का होता है, देन इन दैट आंसर वी कैन से दैट मोनोपोली डज नॉट हैव अ सप्लाई. ठीक है, तो ये फर्स्ट वो कंपल्सरी क्वेश्चन थे. ठीक है, उसको प्रेजेंटेशन वगैरह थोड़ा ध्यान दीजिएगा, जो फर्स्ट मॉडल आंसर दिया जाए उसमें मैं ज़्यादा डिटेल में लिख लूँ, और थोड़ा आइडिया आपको भी डेवलप करना है कि कैसे लिखना है वहाँ पे आंसर. मेरे अकॉर्डिंगली इस फॉर्म में प्रेजेंटेशन होना चाहिए, मतलब जो आंसर शीट हो उसमें कंटेंट ज़्यादा शो होना चाहिए. ठीक है, और डायग्राम वगैरह जब आप यूज़ कर रहे हैं तो डायग्राम प्रोपोर्शनेट होना चाहिए. इस फॉर्म का ज़्यादा बड़ा डायग्राम ड्रॉ नहीं करना. रीजनेबल यू कैन से पेज पे अगर आप यूज़ कर रहे हैं डायग्राम, तो हार्डली इट शुड बी टेकिंग 20% of that sheet, not more than that, 20-25%. ठीक है, ये नहीं कि आपने बहुत बड़ा डायग्राम बना दिया या मल्टीपल डायग्राम ड्रॉ कर दिए और कंटेंट लिखते समय 1 और 2 लाइन लिखती है, वो एक अलग इंडिकेशन देता है दैट यू आर राइटिंग बिहाइंड डायग्राम. ठीक है, आपको इलैबोरेट करना या डिस्क्राइब करना नहीं आ रहा, तो यहाँ पे इलैबोरेशन और डिस्क्रिप्शन ज़्यादा इम्पोर्टेंट है. रीजन भी न्यूमेरिकल क्वेश्चन कम होते हैं, तो वो एक आइडिया देता है कि अगर यूपीएससी का रिक्वायरमेंट आपसे आपके मैथमेटिकल स्किल को चेक करना होता, तो फिर बहुत सारे न्यूमेरिकल क्वेश्चन पूछे जाते. लाइक लिक्विड ट्रैप, ये थ्योरी में ही आता है, लिक्विड ट्रैप का क्वेश्चन भी बना सकते हैं, क्राउडिंग आउट का क्वेश्चन भी बन सकता है न्यूमेरिकल. ग्रेजुएशन लेवल पे होते ही है, या मास्टर्स लेवल पे भी अलग अलग जगह. बट अगर न्यूमेरिकल नहीं पूछ रहे हैं, इसका मतलब ये डू नॉट एक्सपेक्ट यू टू आंसर इन न्यूमेरिकल फॉर्मेट. Breaking that trend from numerical, last day there was one numerical on ISL. वो सेम क्वेश्चन था जो इंडियन इकोनॉमिक सर्विस में आया, बट इंडियन इकोनॉमिक सर्विस मतलब वैल्यूज भी सेम थे, तो वहाँ पे सब पार्ट्स ज़्यादा थे. वहाँ और जो 19 में क्वेश्चन था उसमें सब पार्ट्स कम थे. गिवन दैट सिंस वो फर्स्ट टाइम ISL का न्यूमेरिकल आया, so just to have one practice, I have included one numerical in this test. ठीक है, although before 2019 there was only 2 numerical, and both numerical were based upon coordinate test-takeable model. One question was asked in 2009, other was I think in 2013, and after 2013 ISLM first time question पूछा गया 2019. 5-6 year के इंटरवल पे यूजुअली दे आस्क वन numerical. अगर मिड ट्रेंड रहता है तो नेक्स्ट 3-4 ईयर में कोई नहीं आना चाहिए, बट सिंस ISLM का numerical आ रखा है, सो जस्ट have one practice है और कुछ नए क्वेश्चन मैंने इसमें ऐड कर दिया. मतलब आपको ये मालूम होना चाहिए, सो दैट ये अगर ऐसे क्वेश्चन मिल जाते हैं तो ये स्कोर ज़्यादा कर सकता है. जिन्होंने जिनके स्कोर ज़्यादा हैं और जिनके कम है, उसमें आई थिंक एक डिफरेंस ये भी हो सकता है पेपर वन के. जब न्यूमेरिकल क्वेश्चन आया, उन्हें कुछ स्टूडेंट ने कर दिया तो 15 मार्क्स का क्वेश्चन वो कंप्लीट हो गया. ठीक है, ऐसे क्वेश्चन 60 मार्किंग ज़्यादा हो गई, और अगर गलत हो गए तो जो वेरिएशन है, आई थिंक वो वेरिएशन इस न्यूमेरिकल क्वेश्चन की वजह से भी पार्ट ली. सो आंसर सेकंड ए ISLM. ठीक है, सो इन दैट सेकंड ए ISLM टॉपिक I will write that consumption function first. 100 plus 0.8 YD. Investment was 400 minus 50I. Government expenditure was 500. Tax function was 0.25y. Demand for money is liquidity preference. You can write it by L. 0.4y minus 50I. So it is K and this is H. Nominal money supply 1200 and price level is 2. Here, K given information. Now based upon that, 4 parts are there. Write down IS-LM equation and find income and interest. So आपको सबसे पहले IS और LM का इक्वेशन लिखना है. तो राइट इक्वेशन ऑफ दिस लाइन. equation of another line. So you have two equation and two unknown. Solving them, you will get income and interest. That's part. So first of all, you have to write IS equations. IS equation सिंपल, अगर बेसिक कंसेप्ट भी अगर मालूम है और कैलकुलेशन मिस्टेक नहीं करते हैं तो ये सब स्कोर इजीली हो. In IS curve, you simply equate income with spending. That is what is known as IS curve. Income is Y and spending is aggregate demand. So aggregate demand is C plus I plus G. So simply write that. C की जगह फंक्शन आ जाएगा 100 plus 0.8. In place of YD, you can write income minus tax, disposable income. Income minus tax, और अगर कभी ट्रांसफर गिवन हो, add transfer. Investment is 400 minus 50I. Government expenditure is 500. Clear? ठीक है, आप मतलब फंक्शन को कॉपी करते समय मिस्टेक नहीं करोगे. और फिर y equal to 100 plus 0.8y, expand this minus 0.8 in place of tax, copy this 0.25y plus 4 and 5 900 minus 58. इसको करना क्या है, इधर y वाले टर्म आप लेफ्ट साइड कर लीजिए. इसको मैं सिंप्लीफाई करके डायरेक्टली यहाँ पे लिख दे रहा हूँ. इसको आप कैलकुलेशन पे दे दीजिएगा. लास्ट इक्वेशन आ जाएगा y इज इक्वल टू 2500 plus 2500 will be 2500. IS commit will be minus sign minus 125i. ठीक है, मतलब आप इस टर्म को ये 0.8 वाले लेफ्ट साइड आ जाएगा, या 0.8 into 0.25 that will be 0.2. ठीक है, लेफ्ट साइड करेंगे, y कॉमन लेकर के इसको सॉल्व कर देंगे. ये इक्वेशन नंबर 1 हो जाएगा फॉर IS. एंड फॉर LM इक्वेशन, मनी डिमांड इस वैल्यू इक्वेटेड विथ रियल मनी सप्लाई. सो 0.4y minus 50I is equal to 1200 upon 2. ठीक है, इसको भी सिंप्लीफाई कर देंगे y के टर्म. सो इट विल बी 600 plus 50I. So y will be equal to 1500 plus 125i. This is equation number 2. Okay, first equation और second equation. Remember, अगर equation गलत लिखा है तो पूरे नंबर का गलत लिखा है. ये equation में अगर प्लस माइनस का डिफरेंस हो गया या वैल्यू का एरर हो गया, because based upon that equation you have to calculate income, और जो बेस्ट पार्ट होगा वो भी इसके ऊपर बेस्ड होगा. Equation 1 और 2, solving them, y equal to this, y equal to this, right side इक्वेट कर दी, i की वैल्यू आ जाएगी, और i को किसी भी इक्वेशन में पुट कर देंगे तो y की वैल्यू आ जाएगी. ठीक है, इससे में ये आंसर ये 2000 और 8 ऑफ इंटरेस्ट 4+. ठीक है, ये करेक्ट आंसर. सॉल्यूशन विल बी अपलोडेड. वेटिंग. इनकम और रेट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट, ये आपका फर्स्ट पार्ट हो गया इस क्वेश्चन. Write down IS and LM equation, show the system of for equivalent level of income and rate of interest. This is first part, and then find out budget surplus. Find out budget surplus. Budget surplus simply equation we use. Budget surplus is tax minus government expenditure, और tax की जगह ये function आ जाएगा 0.25y, और y की जगह जो income calculate किया 2000 minus government expenditure. 0.25 into 2000 is also 500, so budget surplus will be 0. ठीक है, बस फॉर्मूला एक पता होना चाहिए. Third and fourth part is that if nominal money supply is increased to 100, what shall be the change in equivalent of income? So nominal money supply, which is initially given as 1200, increased by 100, so now it is 1300. Instead of 1200, वो 1300 हो गया. So write the new LM equation, and that new LM equation equate the IS. मतलब मनी सप्लाई बढ़ेगी तो ये LM कर्व शिफ्ट हो जाएगा. You have to write the equation for new LM and then equate that equation with the IS equation. You will get new income and rate of interest. ठीक है, ये new income और rate of interest में to save some time. So you can write a new LM equation, which will be 0.4y minus 50i is equal to 1200 की जगह 1300 upon 50. 0.4y is equal to 650 plus ti. So y will be equal to 1625 plus 125y. Is third equation को first equation से equate करना, third or first, and therefore income and rate of interest. Rate of interest is coming out to be 3.5. Income is 2062.5. ठीक है. Change in income in fact हो गया 62.5. Change in. So now when question is a monetary policy multiplier, या fiscal policy multiplier. Fiscal policy multiplier usually पूछेंगे जब आपसे government expenditure change की बात होगी. Monetary policy multiplier is simply change in income due to change in real money supply. Change in income is how much? 2000 was earlier. This change in income is 62.5, and change in real money supply. So real money supply was initially 1200 by 2, 600. And this is 650. So change in real money supply is 50. So this is 1.23. Monetary policy. ठीक है. तो इस फॉर्म में एक दो क्वेश्चन इस प्रैक्टिस के फॉर्म में आपको पता होना चाहिए. और टेक्निकली वैसे फॉर्मूला वगैरह याद सिंपल भी होता है कैलकुलेट करने. जैसे अगर आप कैलकुलेट करते हो फिस्कल पॉलिसी मल्टीप्लायर, तो डेल्टा वाई अपॉन डेल्टा डी आ जाएगा. तो चेंज हो जाएगा. किसी क्वेश्चन में गवर्नमेंट एक्सपेंडिचर चेंज दिया जाए तो हम आगे से इक्वेशन देखेंगे, उसको एलएम से इक्वेट करेंगे. अदरवाइज टेक्निकली फॉर्मूला इज आल्सो देयर. फिस्कल पॉलिसी मल्टीप्लायर इज अ गवर्नमेंट मल्टीप्लायर अपॉन 1 प्लस अल्फा जी बी बाई एच इनटू के. ये भी अप्लाई कर सकते हो. ये फॉर्मूला है, डिराइव होता है इनफैक्ट, बट डेरिवेशन की जरूरत नहीं है. वेयर मल्टीप्लायर इज 1 अपॉन 1 माइनस सी प्लस सी. तो और बी इन्वेस्टमेंट फंक्शन में की ओवर एच मनी डिमांड की इक्वेशन. इसका पॉलिसी मल्टीप्लायर ये भी होता है. एंड मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी मल्टीप्लायर अगर आप ये कैलकुलेट कर रहे हो तो मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी मल्टीप्लायर सिंपली जो फिस्कल पॉलिसी मल्टीप्लायर हो गया, फिस्कल पॉलिसी मल्टीप्लायर इनटू बी बाई एच कर देंगे तो मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी मल्टीप्लायर है इन टर्म्स ऑफ फॉर्मूला. But the easiest way, calculate new IS or new LM equation, equate it with the old one, calculate new income and change in income, divide that change in income with change in government expenditure for fiscal policy, and for monetary policy divided by change in real money supply. ठीक है. एक न्यूमेरिकल क्वेश्चन ये प्रैक्टिस के लिए मैंने इसमें इंक्लूड किया हुआ है. Now coming to the B part, what are the possible shape of long run supply curve of competitive industry and what are the reasons for this different shape? Okay, question easy है. Different shape of long run supply curve in a competitive industry. So in a perfectly competitive industry, what could be the long run supply curve? पहले भी ना मैं हर क्वेश्चन के अंदर ये कह रहा हूँ, जो की वर्ड्स आ रहे हैं उस की वर्ड्स को आपको पहले आइडेंटिफाई करना है और उसको डिफाइन करना है फर्स्ट. तो लॉन्ग रन सप्लाई कर्व ऑफ कॉम्पिटिटिव इंडस्ट्री. व्हाट इज लॉन्ग रन सप्लाई कर्व ऑफ कॉम्पिटिटिव इंडस्ट्री रिप्रेजेंट? लॉन्ग रन सप्लाई कर्व ऑफ कॉम्पिटिटिव इंडस्ट्री एक्सप्लेन द रिलेशनशिप बिटवीन प्राइस एंड क्वांटिटी सप्लाइड बाय द इंडस्ट्री व्हेन all existing firms in the market earn normal profit. Unless they are not earning normal profit, it cannot be a situation of long run. In long run, under perfect competition, firms must be earning only normal profit. वो exact definition के साथ आपको मिलेगा. And then explain that what could be the possible shape. So it can be horizontal line, it can be positive slope, or it can be negative slope. can be horizontal line, it can be positive slope or it can be negative slope depending on whether there is constant cost industry, increasing cost industry or decreasing cost industry. वो आपका फर्स्ट टू पैराग्राफ के अंदर ये क्लियर मेंशन होता है कि लाइन कैन बी हॉरिजॉन्टल और कांस्टेंट कॉस्ट इंडस्ट्री. It can be positively sloped for increasing cost industry, negatively sloped for decreasing cost industry. And then you can briefly explain each. That when an industry is said to be constant cost industry. So a constant cost industry is that industry in which price of factors of production, of inputs, remain constant, and therefore cost will remain constant. So inputs and factor of production है, उनका price अगर constant है, then it is referred as constant cost industry. In that case, cost curve will not shift. Remember, each cost curve is based upon a given prices of input. So prices of input remaining same means that cost curve will not shift. And therefore, it is possible for market to provide more and supply more at same price. That is why it is horizontal. You can explain by using diagram. One will be for market, other will be for firm. Demand and supply curve intersection determine price. For normal profit, just a short tendency. This is quantity produced by firm and this is quantity supplied by industry. So when market expands, market expansion means that there is an increase in demand and it could be because of any reason. So when demand increases, demand curve shifts to the right. As a result, price will increase. In short run, price will rise and it will become greater than average cost, which will result into supernormal profit or excess profit. As a result, there will be entry of firm. With entry, two things will happen. One, the supply curve will shift to the right, and second, this cost curve will shift up or down. But since we are discussing constant cost industry, so cost will not change. So cost curve will remain same. So the supply curve will shift to the right so that price returns back to the original level. It returns back to the original level, that is premium. So it is possible for market to produce more and sell more at same price. So these two line, जो points are वो connect करेंगे. And this is your long run industry supply. ठीक है? तो constant cost industry में यहाँ कोई change नहीं आ रहा. Curve is not shifting. In fact, short term में price increase हुआ. Short term में firm जो existing firm होंगे वो quantity ज़्यादा produce करेंगे. But in long run, new firms will enter and each firm will continue to produce the same quantity. In the case of increasing cost industry, increasing or decreasing, may I explain one. Say, in the case of increasing cost industry, cost curve will shift, and it is a case of external diseconomy of scale. External diseconomy of scale. ठीक है, वो keywords underline करेंगे. Internal economies में movement होता है cost curve में, और it is external. That means the cost depend upon the size of market, does not depend upon the size of firm. And in the case of internal, the cost depend upon the size of firm, it does not depend upon the size of market. But international terms will be frequently used. For increasing cost industry, the cost curve will shift up due to external diseconomies. So as new firms enter, the cost increases. Therefore, it is possible for new firms to produce more quantity and supply more quantity only at a higher price. That is why supply curve will be positive. जो keywords आ रहे हैं उसको explain करना है और underline करते रहना. Presentation की है वहाँ पे और डायग्राम की प्रैक्टिस होनी चाहिए, सो दैट वहाँ पे आपको सोचना नहीं है, मार्किंग गलत नहीं होगी. and you will not be committing mistake as well. Demand increases due to market expansion. So with the short run again price will increase. It will become greater than AC. Due to that supernal profit which will attract entry. With entry two things will happen. Supply curve will shift to the right. When new firms will enter they will face increasing cost. So the number of entrant will be less. Supply curve will shift to the right but the shift in supply curve will be less than the shift of demand. Next point you can mark it accordingly higher. First point is this, second point is this, connect these two points. ठीक है, अगर इस फॉर्म का डायग्राम जहाँ पे आपको एक पर्टिकुलर लाइन को बोल्ड करके दिखाना है तो आप दो डिफरेंट कलर का पेन या पेंसिल से आप उसको यूज करिए। ये लाइन क्लियरली शो होनी चाहिए। एंड फॉर अ हायर प्राइस because it is increasing cost industry, so cost curve will shift up. So cost curve is shifting up. Without using margin cost, you can go this side. यदि आप increasing cost industry में ये quality use करो और decreasing cost industry होगी तो shift of supply curve will be more and shift of demand curve will be less, and that will happen due to external economies of scale, mainly technological reasons like mobile industry है तो यहाँ cost reduction हो रहा है, market expand हो रहा है but cost is decline. रियल एस्टेट वगैरह हो गए उस के इंडस्ट्री में कॉस्ट इंक्रीजिंग है, इनपुट्स एक्सपेंसिव हो रहे हैं. देयर आर वेरियस एग्जांपल्स. After this EV part, now see what the striking feature of classical model is the supply determined nature of output and employment. Elaborate the statement. The striking feature of classical model is the supply determined nature of output and employment. Elaborate the statement. ये डायरेक्ट क्वेश्चन चैप्टर नंबर 3 फ्रॉम पूरे चैप्टर में सिंपल सेंटेंस वन कंक्लूजन के फॉर्म में गिवन होगा, लास्ट में सिनॉप्सिस में या समरी के फॉर्म में. मतलब वो कंप्लीट जो चैप्टर है वो एक सिंगल क्वेश्चन को आंसर कर रहा है कि एग्रीगेट सप्लाई का वर्टिकल है, इट इज डिटरमाइंड बाय रियल फैक्टर्स. स्ट्राइकिंग फीचर क्लासिकल मॉडल इज सप्लाई डिटरमाइंड नेचर ऑफ आउटपुट एंड एम्प्लॉयमेंट. ऐसे क्वेश्चन में हाउ टू स्टार्ट. वैसे any question on classical model you can start with the classical dichotomy definition. And according to the classical economists there is a theoretical separation, dichotomy separation. There is a theoretical separation between real variables and nominal variables. Further improve करने के लिए when you say real variables, give some example like within bracket output, employment, real wage, real money supply, and nominal variables like money, price, nominal wage, nominal interest rate, and so on. So there is a theoretical separation between real and nominal variable, and it arises due to monetary neutrality. ठीक है, क्वेश्चन और भी होगा इनमें क्लासिकल डायकोटमी एंड मॉनेटरी न्यूट्रलिटी के ऊपर, बट वो पार्ट आप यहाँ भी यूज कर सकते हैं. That gives you a better start. तो आंसर लिखते समय वो एक इफेक्टिव वर्ड आ जाएगा and the examiner will know that you are understanding those keywords as well. Then go on to explain the classical model. So as per the classical model, which is primarily based upon the assumption of flexibility of wage. So due to flexibility of wage, labor market is always in equilibrium. Labor demand is always equal to labor supply. So employment is determined in the labor market. Once we determine employment, then output is determined according to the production function. From that production function, we derive aggregate supply. ठीक है, तो वो क्लासिकल मॉडल का जो डायग्राम है वो क्लासिकल मॉडल का डायग्राम आप कैन यूज प्रोडक्शन फंक्शन, लेबर डिमांड, लेबर सप्लाई एंड एग्रीगेट सप्लाई. प्रोडक्शन फंक्शन, so y is a function of capital which is constant and employment of labor. Here n and y. Labor demand, labor supply. Their intersection determine the real wage. and employment, and this is full employment. Full employment of labor will produce full employment output. ठीक है, ये फुल एम्प्लॉयमेंट आउटपुट आपने यहाँ मार्क कर लिया है और इसे P1 से कनेक्ट कर लिया. P1 is this price, and then you can say that if price increases, from P1 to P2, then real wage will fall, and at any lower real wage, labor market will not be in equilibrium. As the real nominal wage will increase. When price increases, the nominal wage will increase, and it will increase in the same proportion, so that the real wage remains same. Employment remains same, output remains same. Okay, that is why aggregate supply curve is vertical. So the supply determines nature of output. Supply has a role in determining the output. Demand has a role to determine only price. Demand is not determining the output. But in the Keynesian, अगर आपको compare करना है, then in the Keynesian model, aggregate demand plays the role of determining the output rather than the aggregate supply. Since it is classical model, supply is determining the output rather than the demand. And you incorporate demand, draw aggregate demand का rectangular hyperbola, because classical model का AD derive हुआ है quantity theory अपनी है. ठीक है, मतलब कि क्वेश्चन में आ जाएंगे डिस्कशन में, वो क्लियर कर देंगे. अब न्यू क्लासिकल मॉडल करेंगे, वहाँ भी आएगा क्वांटिटी थ्योरी अपने के क्वेश्चन में भी होगा. So AD has a role to determine the price and AS has a role to determine the output. So when money increases, then what happens? AD shifts. When AD shifts, price increases. P will increase. But increase in P and increase in M will be in the same proportion, so that the real money supply remains constant. Output will remain constant. Only price will increase. So in that way, it is supply determining nature of the output. Supply is determining the output, not the demand. Okay, keywords पे ध्यान दीजिएगा, आप लिखते समय. So this was question number 2, including the numerical one. Third question, one question is स्प्रिंग डिमांड का. ठीक है, वो कॉमन क्वेश्चन है, उसमें मॉडल आंसर से भी आप रेफर कर सकते हैं. This was what are the distinguishing features of oligopoly market? Discuss stakeholder model and compare it to that of corner. ठीक है, तो फर्स्ट पार्ट में कह रहा है features of oligopoly market. So features of oligopoly market, you know, it is characterized by few sellers, few firms large in size. Unlike monopolistic, where firms were large in number but small in size. Second important feature of oligopoly is interdependency. ठीक है, वो शॉर्ट पैराग्राफ आप अलग अलग यूज करते हैं. For interdependency, it means firms are interdependent in terms of their price, in terms of their output, in terms of their advertisement decision, and so on. Due to interdependency, there is a indeterminate demand curve. That is, we do not have a unique demand curve in oligopoly. Plus, price tends to be rigid in oligopoly. वो एक्सपांशन किंग डिमांड कर्व से भी आता है. प्राइस रिजिडिटी के पार्ट को किंग डिमांड कर्व ने हाईलाइट करा. And due to that, there will be an importance of selling cost. वो तो स्टार्ट के फीचर्स चलेंगे. When you compare stakeholder model with the cornered model, remember, in the cornered model, both firms determine their output together. It is quantity competition. It is an example of simultaneous game, you can say. But in this stakeholder model, one firm is intelligent enough. One firm is leader, quantity leader. That firm will set the quantity. Observing that quantity, the follower will react, and the leader know the reaction curve of the follower, which is a example of sequential game. So stakeholder is an example of sequential game. Cornered model is basically an example of simultaneous game. So मॉडल को एक्सप्लेन नहीं करना, वहाँ पे कंपैरिजन के बारे में. तो ब्रीफली एक्सप्लेन अगर करना चाहो कर सकते हैं, बट जो मेन थिंग्स है उसको पहले मेंशन कर दीजिए rather than you are writing all those assumptions. mainly कर दिया आपको जैसे होमोजेनस ग्रुप कॉस्ट से 0, वो आप if you are short of that content तो फिर आप सब्स्टिट्यूट कर सकते हो. अदरवाइज if you know that content, not it is not necessary to explain all those assumptions. Since the keyword is here interdependency, and that interdependency has been better explained by the reaction curve, which is also known as best response curve. Just explain what do you mean by reaction curve. What does reaction curve represent? So reaction curve basically represents, suppose if I draw a reaction curve of firm 1, and this is quantity of firm 1, quantity of firm 2. This is best response of firm 1. Reaction curve of firm 1 will represent the profit maximizing quantity produced by firm 1 for any given quantity produced by firm 2. Reaction curve or best response. What is the best response means? It is profit maximizing response. Reaction curve represents the profit maximizing quantity produced by firm 1 for any given quantity produced by firm 2. तभी आप जब फंक्शन वगैरह मैक्सिमाइज करते हैं तो मैं फर्म 1 के प्रॉफिट को मैक्सिमाइज करूंगा, जो डिफरेंशिएट करेंगे, कीपिंग आउटपुट प्रोड्यूस्ड बाय फर्म 2 एज कांस्टेंट. So this is a reaction curve of firm 1. Similarly, you find reaction curve of firm 2, and their intersection determine the corner output. ठीक है, ये जो क्वांटिटी Q1 और Q2 है, this is the, remember coordinate is basically referred as a Nash equilibrium. तो Nash equilibrium, coordinate Nash equilibrium कह सकते हैं. Nash equilibrium always means a set of standard where both are doing their best and no one will prefer to deviate from them. So if firm 1 is producing Q1 star and firm 2 is producing Q2 star, then no firm will prefer to deviate from their decision. In that sense, it is coordinate. ठीक है, ISO profit line अगर बनानी है तो इस पर. And when you apply staker work, then in that staker work, one firm is intelligent, sophisticated firm, and that sophisticated firm know the reaction curve of the firm. So if this is one reaction curve of firm 1, ये coordinate का solution intersection, but in the staker curve the leader will be in an advantageous position. Leader by producing more forces the follower to react by producing less, and thereby leader increases its own profit at the expense of the follower. तो अगर आप फर्स्ट फर्म को लीडर मान रहे हैं, फर्म 1 इज लीडर, तो लीडर का प्रॉफिट इंक्रीज होगा एंड सब्जेक्ट टू द रिएक्शन कर्व ऑफ फर्म 2, ये टेंजेंट शो करेगा. Subject to the reaction curve of firm 2, leader will be maximizing its own profit because leader know the reaction curve of follower and leader will incorporate the reaction curve of follower into its own profit function before maximizing. जो की पॉइंट्स है रिएक्शन कर्व का डिस्क्रिप्शन है और ब्रीफ स्टेकर द्वारा कोऑर्डिनेट मॉडल का डिस्क्रिप्शन है, वो आना चाहिए. की पॉइंट्स लिखने चाहिए. ग्राफ का प्रेफरेबली ये दो आप अलग अलग यूज करेंगे. जो ग्राफ एडजस्टमेंट प्रोसेस को एक्सप्लेन करने के लिए कोऑर्डिनेट मॉडल में कि फर्स्ट पीरियड सेकंड पीरियड यू कैन स्किप दैट. अगर वो रिक्वायर्ड अगर कोऑर्डिनेट मॉडल का स्पेसिफिकली डायग्राम होगा तो आप यूज कर सकते हैं. नाउ the third part, third B part, given economy with fixed prices, discuss the impact of following factors on the effectiveness of fiscal and monetary policy. One point is degree of sensitivity of money demand to interest rate, ये H है, और second है marginal propensity to consume. This will affect slope of IS. This will affect slope of IS. Remember, slope of LM is K by H. अगर आप यहाँ पे इफेक्टिवनेस को एक्सप्लेन करें, H की वैल्यू अगर इंक्रीज होती है then slope will decline. Means slope के डिक्रीज होने का मतलब है लाइन फ्लैटर हो गई. यहाँ भी आप दो एक्सट्रीम पोजीशन भी लेके एक्सप्लेन कर सकते हो. H 0 ले लिया तो LM का वर्टिकल हो जाएगा, और H इनफाइनाइट कर दिया तो लिक्विडिटी ट्रैप का कंडीशन हो गया. take extreme condition. If it is liquidity trap, then monetary policy is ineffective. And why it is ineffective? That has been explained in the liquidity trap. Okay, वो डायरेक्ट यहाँ पे अप्लाई करना. But fiscal policy will be effective. And here, fiscal policy will be ineffective because there will be complete crowding out in the classical case. So here, fiscal policy is ineffective. But don't leave your answer just by stating that. It is ineffective because entire fiscal expansion will be crowded out. The complete crowding out case. Because as there will be fiscal expansion, rate of interest will rise. And because of higher interest rate, investment spending will fall by the same amount. Therefore, income will remain unchanged. And monetary policy is effective. Short paragraph में आप इसको एक पॉइंट के लिए एक्सप्लेनेशन करें. Second is marginal propensity to consume का क्या होगा? MPC का. But MPC will not affect slope of LR. It will affect slope of IS curve. So for that purpose, you must know what is slope of IS, which is 1 upon minus because of negative slope. Alpha is multiplier. B is responsiveness of adjustment due to change in rate of interest. यहाँ पे मल्टीप्लायर की वैल्यू होगी 1 upon MPC. ठीक है. Remember, if C will increase, multiplier and MPC are directly related. So when MPC increases, multiplier will increase. But when multiplier will increase, slope will decrease and line will be flatter. ठीक है. तो यहाँ IS कर्व को आपको फ्लैटर स्टीप करेंगे. IS कर्व को स्टीप और फ्लैटर लेके और दोनों के मॉनेटरी और फिस्कल पॉलिसी को एग्जामिन कीजिए. In this type of question, what is required is that you must know exactly what is slope of IS curve numerically. मालूम होना चाहिए, वो शो नहीं करना होगा, but वो relationship याद होना चाहिए. That will save time. Otherwise, you will have to think, okay, if LKC will be higher, then what will happen and so on. What are it? Slope of L and slope of IS, extreme condition, all should be must be on your tips. And this third B was king demand curve and bring out the policy implication. King demand curve एक repeatedly asked question है. उसमें main thing is that king demand curve concept was provided by Paul Suri and it provided an operational tool to explain how prices are determined in the oligopoly market. And then explain why kink arises. So kink arises due to difference in elasticity of upper segment and lower segment. Difference in elasticity of upper segment and the lower segment. Explain why that difference arises. Why upper segment is elastic, lower is inelastic. Because when firm will increase the price, they assume that others will not follow. When they reduce the price, they expect that others will follow. So specify that assumption clearly. Due to kink in the demand curve, marginal revenue curve has a discontinuous range. अभी डायग्राम ड्रॉ करते समय ध्यान दीजिए, ये लाइन यहाँ तक एक्सटेंड होनी चाहिए. ठीक है. बहुत सारे स्टूडेंट जो लिख रहे हैं वो डायग्राम ये लेफ्ट साइड है, ये किंक जहाँ तक आएगा वहाँ तक की लाइन आएगी. देन डिसकंटिन्यूटी एंड देन दिस वन. The gap between demand and MR will always expand. And then draw marginal cost curve passing through this one. Then explain what is the importance of kink. Any quantity to the left of kink, MC is lower, MR is greater. So firm will produce more quantity. To the right, MC is greater, MR is lower. Firm will reduce the quantity. Quantity will keep on changing till it is determined by the quantity. And then cost will increase. Then there will be no impact on price. So in that sense, prices tends to be raised. So explain that part. And the most obvious limitation is that it is not a theory of price determination. It is just a theory of rigidity of price. Once it is determined, reason it fails to explain at what price there will be kink. Kink can be above also, or kink can be below also. It is not explaining where there will be kink. It simply say that there is a kink at market price without explaining what will be that market price. So that limitation and this graph is the description of it. Now the last question in section A is a fourth. A is based upon market failure. What is asymmetric information? How does it lead to market failure? Explain with suitable example. ठीक है, मार्केट फेलियर का क्वेश्चन. मार्केट फेलियर के क्वेश्चन जो 2016 ऑनवर्ड्स पूछे जा रहे हैं, उससे पहले मार्केट फेलियर के मतलब एक्सटर्नलिटी के या asymmetric information के क्वेश्चन नहीं होते. 16 में there was in fact 2 questions. One was on market for lemon and other was on signal. What is asymmetric information? Asymmetric information means the buyer and seller do not have the same information. Perfect competition market is based on the assumption of perfect information. And buyer and seller has same information, but in the case of asymmetric, buyer and seller do not have the same information. In that way, it is asymmetric. And because of that asymmetric information, there is market failure. And then explain it by using the example of market for lemon. ठीक है, यूज कार का मार्केट, उस मार्केट फॉर लेमन में आप यूज कार मार्केट का एग्जांपल ले सकते हैं. But there is a good quality, that is plum. Poor quality, that will be lemon. So good quality and poor quality का example ले लीजिए. Remember, in order to have a market, the condition which is required is that consumers' willingness to pay must be greater than or at least equal to cost to sell. ये मार्केट के एग्जिस्ट करने का कंडीशन, मतलब when you draw डिमांड का and सप्लाई का, simply market quantity get determined by intersection. Why not more? Why not more quantity? Reason for any additional quantity, consumers' willingness to pay less and seller cost is more. So that quantity will not be produced. It is inefficient to produce that quantity. Any quantity to the left is being produced, and so you reach that equivalent quantity, because for those quantities cost is less and willingness to pay is more. For market to exist, willingness to pay must be greater than the cost. But my willingness to pay depends upon the quality of the product. But quality get mixed up here. So my willingness to pay is determined by the average quality. Whenever you take that average will be higher as compared to lower, and it will be lower as compared to the good quality. The good quality के लिए जो मेरा maximum willingness है, if I am able to verify the quality, then my willingness to pay is different for different. So if I am able to verify, there is no problem of asymmetric information. Asymmetric information problem arises only when you fail to separate good quality from the bad quality. So in that way, by using this market example of used car, you can explain that market failure problem. Then other is explain monetary policy transmission mechanism. Fourth B. Explain monetary policy transmission mechanism. Specify the circumstances in which this mechanism fails. So monetary policy transmission mechanism. But transmission mechanism, first of all, transmission mechanism is the mechanism by which increase in money supply will affect aggregate demand, and thereby it will be affecting income or output. So explain that, define that transmission mechanism first. Then transmission mechanism works through 2 steps. Step 1, step 2. In step 1, only rate of interest will change. In fact, it will fall. Use ISLM. So when money supply increases, LM curve shifts to the right. Remember, money market always adjusts first. Goods market adjustment is gradual. First of all, you have to think about the money market. So what happens that when money supply increases, People use that excess money to buy bonds. When they buy bonds, value of bond will increase and that will push rate of interest down. Bond के value का और rate of interest का inverse relation. वो elaborate नहीं करना वहाँ पे mathematically. This value of bond and rate of interest are inverse related. You have to use that sentence. So when money supply increases, people use that money supply in order to buy bond because people are holding, remember, cash and bond both. So when money supply increases, they are in possession of more cash. So they always maintain a portfolio. So when they have more cash, they use that cash to buy bond. When they buy more bond, value of bond will increase, and that will push rate of interest downward. ये पहला movement होगा. So rate of interest downward का explanation होगा. Now when interest rate reduces in the subsequent or step number 2, when interest rate reduces, it will increase investment and thereby aggregate demand will increase and therefore income will increase. But that will change occur gradually. So after that it is gradual. Movement is from 1 to 2, step 1, 2 to 3, step 2. That is mechanism. But this question is added as specify the circumstances in which this mechanism fails. Now when this mechanism will not work. This mechanism will not work when either step 1 is not operating or when step 2 is not operating. ये step operate नहीं करने के पीछे logic क्या हो सकता है? If I say B is 0, B is a investment function, I bar minus B. अगर B 0 हो गया इसका मतलब investment is just autonomous. It is not responding to change in interest rate. So when investment is only autonomous and it is not responding to change in interest rate, then even when interest rate will fall, there will be no increase in investment, therefore no change in AD, no change in AD. फर्दर अगर आपको टेक्निकली जानना है तो याद रखिएगा बी अगर 0 करते हैं तो IS का वर्टिकल हो जाएगा. तो व्हाट इज स्लोप ऑफ IS? स्लोप ऑफ IS वाज -1 अपॉन अल्फा इनटू B. तो अगर ये B 0 करते हैं then IS का will be vertical, slope infinite हो जाएगा and Monte Coulson will not work. The second case where Monte Coulson will not work is liquidity trap. It's not that when if you keep on increasing money supply, this both step will continue to operate forever. Rate of interest will gradually reduce, and once it reduces and it becomes closer to 0, then there will be a situation of liquidity trap, and in that liquidity trap condition, step 1 will not operate, transmission mechanism will not operate, and therefore monetary policy becomes ineffective. Here, monetary policy के ineffective होने के पीछे लॉजिक explain करना both part. The question was requiring that. Explain the transmission mechanism and specify the circumstances in which this mechanism fails. Clear? Now come to the last question in section A. Simplicity of quantitative theory of money is the strength as well as simplicity of quantitative theory of money. So the most important statement is quantitative theory of money. Quantitative theory of money. Just start your answer by stating quantitative theory of money. Quantitative theory of money explain relationship between quantity of money and general price. Simple statements to start with. Quantitative theory of money explain relationship between quantity of money and general price level, and according to it there is a direct and equiproportional relationship between quantity of money and general price level. In that way, it is a very simplified statement that MB is equal to PY. Since it is a part of classical model, so classical model believed on classical assumptions. Due to that classical assumption, Y is always equal to YF. So in that way, output is constant. Classical believe that velocity is constant because of institutional factors. Keyword ke jange. Institutional factors like payment habit, payment technology, like ATM facilities, credit card facilities, and those factors do not change in short run. Therefore, velocity remains constant. And therefore, as quantity of money will increase, price will increase in the same proportion. ठीक है, से आपका vertical AS रेक्टेंगुलर हाइपरबोला एडी से एक्सप्लेन कर सकते हैं. क्वांटिटी ऑफ मनी विल राइज, एडी will shift, and therefore price will increase. So in that way it is simplified. It simply explains quantity of money is the main factor which determine price. Because quantity of money is determining AD and AD is determining price. And this is the weakness also. Remember, in economy price can change even when quantity of money is not changed. There could be supply side factor. Economy of money supply constant view, but if there is lack of production, then price will change. So it is said that money is an important factor, but it is not the only factor. In that way, it will be the criticism. यहाँ पे आपको सेपरेट नहीं करना बिटवीन फिशर इक्वेशन. फिशर इक्वेशन तो हम नॉर्मली यूज कर ही रहे हैं. फिशर इक्वेशन, कैम्ब्रिज इक्वेशन, आई थिंक लेटर ऑन सेकंड सेक्शन के क्वेश्चन में होगा. यहाँ पे आपको कंपेयर करना बिटवीन फिशर इक्वेशन एंड दी कैम्ब्रिज इक्वेशन. ठीक है, तो ये क्वांटिटी थ्योरी ऑफ मनी में नंबर इसके अलग अलग फॉर्म मतलब वर्जन. एक जो क्लासिकल कंसेप्ट पढ़ रहे हैं, एंड अदर इज मॉडर्न. This modern will be explained in Friedman. Quantity theory. Classical divided into two parts. One will be the Fisher equation, and there will be the Cambridge equation. ठीक है, तो Fisher और Cambridge जब कंपेयर करना, remember both are part of classical. ठीक है, तो ये different क्वेश्चन के अंदर भी included हो जाएगा. क्या तो ऐसे क्वेश्चन अगेन जैसे रिपीट बोथ साइड का आंसर आपको लिखना है. एक्सप्लेन करते समय ट्राई टू स्टार्ट by defining the main term used in the question, and the answer presentation even जो numerical question है उसका solution upload रहेगा. ऐसे कॉपी नहीं करना एक फंक्शन वगैरह, बट प्रेजेंटेशन थोड़ा क्लियर रखिएगा. यू आर राइटिंग IS इक्वेशन, इनकम इक्वल टू स्पेंडिंग, कैलकुलेशन शो करेंगे. प्रेफरेबली वाई के टर्म में लिखिए, ज़्यादा इजी रहता है. एंड वहाँ एक्सप्लेनेशन वगैरह नहीं देना, बट स्टिल इफ यू राइट इन दिस फॉर्म, LM equation is liquidity preference equal to money supply. In that way it is LM equation of formula. ठीक है, और जो बाकी क्वेश्चन रिमेनिंग क्वेश्चन है उसका प्रेजेंटेशन आपको थोड़ा क्लियर रखना. मतलब बहुत ज़्यादा कटिंग वगैरह नहीं होना चाहिए. शुड बी वेरी नीट. ग्राफ वगैरह प्रॉपरली ड्रॉ करना है. क्लैरिटी होनी चाहिए आप जब लिख रहे हैं उसमें. जो पैराग्राफ या सेंटेंस आप फेस कर रहे हो उसमें क्लैरिटी होनी चाहिए. स्कोर करने के लिए ये की है, तो जितना क्लियर एग्जैक्ट होगा उतना ज़्यादा प्रेफर्ड वे ऑफ आंसर. और वो ज़्यादा देखना, आपको सर्च नहीं करना. यू डोंट हैव टू यूज योर ओन वर्ड्स. बेसिकली इस तरीके का कंसेप्ट ये जो भी यहाँ पे जैसे बैलेंस शीट लिखा है, ये डॉन बुश में क्लियरली गिवन है इनिशियल चैप्टर के अंदर, इनकम एंड स्पेंडिंग. We have explained section A, all question in section A. ठीक है, इसके लिए दो सीक्वेंस में या दो पार्ट में बेसिकली डिस्कशन को करेंगे, सो दैट ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा क्वेश्चन डिस्कस हो पाए. तो ब्रेक करते हुए बेसिकली इसको अभी तक जो डिस्कशन किया उसमें सेक्शन ए का क्वेश्चन मैंने कंप्लीट कर दिया. सेक्शन ए का डिस्कशन. ठीक है, ये टेस्ट नंबर 1 सेक्शन ए. ठीक है, तो इसमें जितने भी क्वेश्चन थे वो मैंने डिस्कस कर लिए. मोस्टली क्वेश्चन के मॉडल आंसर आपको मिल जाएंगे. एक दो क्वेश्चन जो रिपीटेटिव होता है उसमें आप उसको जनरलाइज कर सकते, बट मोस्टली क्वेश्चन के आंसर आपको मिल जाएंगे. नॉट ऑल बट मोस्ट ऑफ them. सो नेक्स्ट यहाँ से कंटिन्यू करेंगे विथ सेम टेस्ट, दैट इज टेस्ट नंबर 1 विथ सेक्शन बी. ठीक है, सेक्शन बी में लेकिन वही सेम टॉपिक है, मार्केट और क्लासिकल मॉडल और आइसोलेशन के क्वेश्चन. ठीक है, वो डिफरेंट क्वेश्चन के फॉर्म. तो सेक्शन बी इतना टाइम जैसे सेक्शन ए के अंदर लग रहा है, मार्जिन में थोड़ा सा कम, बट सेक्शन बी के अंदर फिर आपको क्वेश्चन नंबर 5, 6, 7 और 8. ठीक है, बट करंटली जो डिस्कशन है, इनफैक्ट वी कैन से लास्ट बैच जो मई में बिगिन हुआ और ये टेस्ट सीरीज भी कम्प्लीटली ये लॉकडाउन वाले फेज में ही जा रहा है. जो डिस्कशन हो रहा है वो ऑफलाइन नहीं हो रहा है अभी. ठीक है, स्टिल दिल्ली गवर्नमेंट के गाइडलाइन के अकॉर्डिंगली वी कैन नॉट कंडक्ट क्लासेस. ठीक है, तो फॉर दैट पर्पज वो ऑफलाइन वहाँ से ऑपरेट नहीं हो रहा है. Center is also open for administrative work, material लेना है. If you, some student deciding nearby they want to go and write test here, for that purpose also it is allowed. आप अभी जो भी आंसर लिख रहे हैं वो स्कैन करके यू आर मेलिंग इट ऑन इको ऑप्शनल टेस्ट सीरीज @gmail.com, तो उस पर आप मेल कर देंगे. ओवर अ पीरियड ऑफ टाइम, आई थिंक नेक्स्ट टेक्स्ट विद इन 1 वीक और 10 डेज, आपके जो एक्सेस मिल रखा आपका जो कोर्स होगा उस कोर्स के अंदर ये प्रोविजन होगा आपके पोर्टल पे ही, आपको अपने आंसर शीट को वहीं पे अपलोड कर सकते हैं और फिर ट्रैक भी कर सकते हैं कि अब वो इवेल्युएट हुआ है या नहीं हुआ है. ठीक है, इवेल्युएट होने के बाद भी आपके पास मेल चला जाएगा और वो आपके पोर्टल पे ही शो करेगा. ठीक है, अभी आपको पर्सनलाइज वो मेल के फॉर्म में जाता है, आपके अकाउंट के अंदर ही वो सारे प्रोविजन बनाए जाएंगे. इट विल टेक आई थिंक 1 वीक और 10 डेज. 15th ऑफ बिफोर दिवाली वी कैन से वो सारे फंक्शन हो रहा है. अदर टाइमिंग आप उसे मेल कर दें. अगर 1-to-1 जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल किसी क्वेश्चन में डिस्कशन करना है या जो आंसर शीट आपको मिला हुआ उसमें क्या इम्प्रूवमेंट है फर्दर, बिकॉज ऑल इवैल्यूएशन इज बीन डन बाय मी, तो समटाइम्स वो कमेंट लिखने में बहुत ज़्यादा टाइम लगता है. तो अगर आपको 1-to-1 लेटर से क्वेश्चन डिस्कस करना है, so for that purpose I will say that once you receive your evaluated answer, just make a call. ठीक है, आप कॉल कर दीजिए मुझे. I will have your evaluated answer sheet on my mail. I will open that and we can discuss your answer sheet 1-to-1. ठीक है, जो इंडिविजुअलाइज हो जाएगा. जो इस वीडियो में लेटर से अगर आपको कुछ पर्टिकुलर क्वेश्चन पूछने थे वो अगर रह रहे हैं तो वो आप कॉल करके पूछ सकते हैं. ठीक है, and for that purpose I think a number. ठीक है, इस पर कॉल करके इससे डायरेक्टली अपने आंसर शीट के बारे में पूछ सकते हैं. ठीक है, तो अभी हमने टेस्ट 1 का सेक्शन ए डिस्कस किया है. मोस्ट ऑफ द क्वेश्चन के मॉडल आंसर भी अपलोड हो जाएंगे एंड सेक्शन बी विल बी स्टार्टिंग फ्रॉम सेक्शन बी. ठीक है, द नेक्स्ट. ठीक है, वो ब्रेक के बाद नेक्स्ट सेक्शन बी आ जाएगा. ठीक है, आई विल ट्राई टू अपलोड इट टुडे इटसेल्फ, अदरवाइज इट विल बी डन टुमारो. सो इन अ फ्यू डेज it will be done with section B. And then so far I think 3 tests today. 1st November 4th test, मतलब पेपर 2 का फर्स्ट टेस्ट का शेड्यूल है. अभी तक 3 हुए, तो इस वीक में मैं ट्राई करूँगा कि 2nd और 3rd, ठीक है, उसको थोड़ा पेस इंक्रीज करते हैं. अभी तक टाइम इसलिए ज़्यादा लिया बिकॉज ज़्यादातर स्टूडेंट ने भी टेस्ट नंबर 1 लिखा नहीं. तो ये रिजल्ट है, ऑब्वियसली रिजल्ट है जो शेड्यूल टाइम होता था उससे पहले आया और स्टूडेंट्स वर प्रिपेयरिंग फॉर राइटिंग टेस्ट 1 and 2. तो अब ज़्यादातर स्टूडेंट्स अब लिख रहे हैं टेस्ट, तो उनके लिए अब डिस्कशन भी अपलोडेड होगी. ठीक है, तो इस वीक में मैं ट्राई करूँगा कि आपका ये टेस्ट 1 तो हो ही जाएगा, टेस्ट 2 के डिस्कशन भी और 3 आई विल ट्राई टू कंप्लीट बोथ. मतलब एक वीक में नॉर्मली एक टेस्ट हो रहा है, मैं डिस्कशन 1 या 2 ऐड करता रहूँगा. और इसको ब्रेक कर रहे हैं इसलिए बिकॉज ऑफलाइन की क्लास में तो ये दोनों एक साथ ही हो जाती है, और उसमें कभी कभी कुछ क्वेश्चन रह जाते हैं बिकॉज डिस्कशन थोड़ा लेंदी हो जाता है. तो आई विल prefer to have discussion in a section way so that most of the question can be discussed. ठीक है, यहाँ से कंटिन्यू करेंगे सेक्शन बी से. कोई इंडिविजुअल अगर क्वेरी होगी, प्रॉब्लम होगा, तो आप इस नंबर पर कॉल करिए. थैंक यू.